They told him he was finished before he ever really started. They told him his body was too broken, his story too messy, his chances too thin. They told him that some people are just born to lose, and that he was one of them. Sergio Murgina heard every single one of those words, and then he did something nobody expected. He kept walking forward. This is not a story about talent. This is not a story about luck. This is a story about a man who decided, somewhere in the middle of his lowest moment, that he would rather die trying than live surrendering. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why people still whisper his name when they talk about what it truly means to never back down. Stay with me. Because if you've ever felt like giving up, this story might change your life. Every great story has a beginning that looks nothing like the ending. Sergio's began in a small, overlooked neighborhood where opportunity was a word people used in movies, not in real life. He wasn't the strongest kid. He wasn't the smartest kid. He wasn't the kid teachers pointed to and said, "That one's going somewhere." If anything, he was the kid people forgot to notice, quiet, awkward, often alone, carrying a heaviness in his eyes that most children shouldn't have to carry. His home wasn't a safe place. There was shouting more often than there was silence, and silence more often than there was comfort. Money was scarce. Stability was scarcer. By the time Sergio was old enough to understand what normal meant, he already knew his life would never fit that word. But here's the thing about pain when you're young. It either breaks you completely, or it plants something deep inside you that takes years to grow. For Sergio, it planted a single, stubborn seed. I will not stay like this forever. He didn't know what that meant yet. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a mentor, a coach, or a guide. All he had was a feeling, small, quiet, but persistent, that somewhere out there, a different life was waiting for him. And it was his job to go find it. Every person who has ever accomplished something extraordinary has a moment they can point back to, the first real hit. The first time life didn't just challenge them, it tried to break them. For Sergio, that moment came early. He'd finally found something that felt like his, a discipline, a craft, a physical outlet where he could pour every ounce of frustration and hurt he'd been carrying. He trained relentlessly. He showed up when others didn't. He stayed late when the doors were closing and everyone else had already gone home. And then came his first real test, a moment meant to prove whether all that effort actually meant anything. He lost, badly, not just lost, humiliated. The kind of loss that makes you question every decision that led you there. The kind of loss where people who never believed in you get to say, "See, I told you so." He remembers walking home that night in silence. No one comforting him, no one telling him it would be okay. Just him, his thoughts, and the crushing weight of failure sitting on his chest like a stone he couldn't lift off. Most people quit right there. Most people take that failure as proof that they were right to doubt themselves all along. Sergio almost did too, but somewhere in that dark, quiet walk home, something shifted. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" he asked a different question, a more dangerous question. A question that would define the rest of his life. What am I willing to do to make sure this never happens again? That single question became the foundation of everything that came after. Every underdog story eventually arrives at a single defining moment, the one where everything they've built, everything they've sacrificed, gets tested all at once. For Sergio, that moment arrived in the form of an opponent everyone expected him to lose to. Someone more experienced, someone more celebrated, someone the entire world had already crowned the winner before the moment even began. The pressure was enormous. Not just the pressure of competition, but the pressure of proving, to himself more than anyone else, that every sacrifice had actually meant something. That the sleepless nights, the injuries, the doubt, the loneliness, all of it had built toward this single point in time. He remembers standing there, heart pounding, facing everything he had worked for and everything he feared losing all at once. And in that moment, he didn't think about winning. He didn't think about the crowd, the doubters, or the years of struggle. He thought about one simple truth he had carried with him since that very first devastating loss all those years ago. I would rather give everything I have and fall short than hold anything back and wonder, what if, for the rest of my life? So he gave everything, every ounce of training, every lesson learned from failure. Every night he chose discipline over comfort. It all poured out in that single moment, refined into something that could not be denied. It wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. There were moments it looked like it might slip away entirely. But Sergio didn't back down, not for a second, not when it got hard, not when doubt crept back in, not when his body begged him to stop. He kept moving forward. Because that's what he had trained his entire life to do. And when it was finally over, something had changed, not just in the outcome, but in the way people looked at him. The doubt was gone. The dismissiveness was gone. What remained was respect, the kind that can only be earned, never given. Looking back now, Sergio doesn't describe his journey as a story about talent, luck, or even winning. He describes it as a story about refusal, the simple, stubborn refusal to accept a life smaller than the one he knew he was capable of building. He learned that setbacks are not signs to stop. They are simply part of the process almost everyone who succeeds has to go through. He learned that doubt from others says more about their limitations than it ever says about your potential. He learned that discipline, practiced quietly and consistently when no one is watching, is what actually separates people who dream from people who achieve. And most importantly, he learned that never back down isn't just a phrase you say when things are going well. It's a decision you make in the moments when everything in you wants to quit, and you choose, again and again, to keep going anyway. Maybe you're not preparing for a fight in a ring. But maybe you're fighting something just as real, a setback, a failure, a moment where everyone around you has quietly stopped believing you'll make it. Sergio Murgina's story is a reminder that it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. It doesn't matter how many people doubt you, how many times life tries to convince you to quit, or how dark the moment feels right now. What matters is the decision you make next. Will you accept the story other people have written for you? Or will you, like Sergio, decide that your ending hasn't been written yet, and that you're the only one who gets to hold the pen? Never back down, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. If this story moved you even a little, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe for more stories like this one and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Because somewhere out there, someone is one video away from deciding not to give up. Make sure it's you.